That's the whole tune. Let's do it one more time. Chag Shavuot Sameach. Thank you very much. Can I just ask, for whom is this your first Shavuot that you are doing in life? Yes, I am so glad about that. I mean, I'm for whatever the reason is that you are here tonight, that you thought, I'd like to explore Revelation or eat pasta or hear the stories of folks in the community. And for any other reasons you may be here, or be back here, be here for the first time, welcome. I'm Rabbi Lizzie Heidemann, Rabbi Stephen Philp, and we're so happy to be doing this. Every year, Mishkan is part of the Lakeview sort of collaborative tikkun, and I'll explain what the tikkun concept is in a moment, but that happens at Anshe Emet, and it starts at like 10, and at 10 it's like cheesecake. There's just like lots of food everywhere for all of the Jews and anyone else who snuck in because it's Shavuot and they got the memo. And then at 11 there'll be kind of like a panel of clergy talking about something. And it's all of the clergy of all of the synagogues, Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, whatever we are, Reform from downtown, from the South Side, and it's grown every year, actually. At first, it was just like the 3 synagogues on Broadway and Mishkan, and it has just successively grown to, I don't know, I think there are 8 different synagogues that are involved at this point, and so, and members of those places are going to be teaching for the night, including Tim Graves, and including, we actually have a Mishkan teen who's on a teen panel, and we've got another person teaching about psychology in Torah, and people from all the different communities teaching. So you have the opportunity, if you want, to literally stay up to watch the sunrise, to stay up all night learning. The holiday of Shavuot, as a holiday celebrating revelation of Torah, does not actually appear in the Torah. Interestingly, it's a holiday invented to make sense of the fact that there was a holiday 49 days, or now 50 days, after Passover, because the Torah is really clear. Count 49 days from Passover to this day. It's referred to as Shavuot, weeks. What the Greek, Stephen taught me this earlier, the name Pentecost, it's often written in Christian Bibles as a Greek word referring to the 50, like the 50 days after Passover, which is Shavuot. And it's a harvest holiday, as all of the pilgrimage holidays in the Torah are. Sukkot in the fall, Passover in, March or whenever it is in the, early spring. And then Shavuot was about kind of like the beginning of the harvest of wheat and the beginning of the first fruits and the calving of animals and milk being everywhere because little baby sheepies and goaties were being born and, nursing. And thank you, Lexi, for bringing me homemade kefir. from the Zumwalt farm. And hence the cheesecake and all dairy-inspired foods. But it's kind of like a patchked together holiday, because then at the end it's like, okay, well, if we're, we have the memory, the sense memory of our people all, being in one place and harvesting together, but like not everybody's a farmer anymore and not everybody lives on the land anymore. So what can we celebrate that makes sense calendrically? And they sort of looked at the Torah and were like, well, it does say that about 3 months after the Exodus from Egypt, the Jews stood at Sinai. The math doesn't totally work, but maybe they won't notice. And Revelation, we're celebrating Torah. And so that's what it is. And there's a midrash that says that the Jews were so tired at Sinai that they fell asleep and basically missed the whole thing. And so as a tikkun, as a healing, a kind of cosmic repair for that immense mistake of slumbering during, what was maybe the most important moment of all of their lives, we, for the rest of time, try our very best to stay up all night to receive revelation, the divine download. This past week in Minyan, we talked about the idea that one is supposed to make oneself open like a desert, and that one can receive revelation when one is open like a desert. And the article that we read said, so okay, go to an all-night tikkun, have a festive meal, hang out with people, talk, learn, study, and also make sure you find time, sometime over this Shavuot holiday, to empty yourself, to breathe, to empty your mind, to be quiet, to go for a walk, and to see what comes to you, to see what your revelation is this year. So we wanted to begin tonight, and we'll do a few things in a row. We're going to begin with lighting festival candles, raising a glass, and making kiddush. For anybody who didn't grow up with this holiday or didn't grow up with the festive meals of doing Shavuot, and so the sound of kiddush may be new and unfamiliar. We didn't make a copy to hand out to everybody. We'll just do it. But if you know it, please sing along. And if you don't, shout a big fat amen at the end. And then we say Shehechianu for, arriving at this moment together at this season. And then Rabbi Stephen will take us into what is next and who is next and how it is happening. All right. If you wanted a glass of wine, they're in the back there. If you wanted, to be able to raise a glass and make kiddush over, you don't have to. I will be doing it ceremonially, but if you just, okay. And welcome to everybody who's with us online. We're so glad you are here. And I also want to give a big fat congratulations to the disability and chronic illness small group that's been counting the Omer every single week. You made it. You made it. And we all made it to this moment. Whatever you want. Well, I don't use the words.
For those who want to join me in the blessing, it's very similar to our Shabbat candle lighting blessing, but we say Shel Yom Tov instead of Shel Shabbat at the end. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov. Amen.
All right. Avri chaverai, with your permission, my friends. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. You can say amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romamanu mikol lashon v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag hashavuot hazeh zman matan torateinu mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim u'moadei kodshecha b'simcha u'v'sason hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Amen. And then Shehechianu, we'll just do in the good old-fashioned Debbie Friedman tune. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'hegianu Lazman Hazeh. One more time, cause it's pretty. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'hegianu Lazman Hazeh. Amen. You want to get it? Amen. L'chaim. All right.
So on the board back there, I wrote down one of my favorite midrashim, one of my favorite rabbinic interpretations of a verse. And the verse that we see, the Revelation gets described multiple times in the Torah. And in one of the accounts, is one of the first accounts of Revelation in the Torah, it talks about how all of the people witnessed, and I gave you this really awful sounding but very literal translation. It says they witnessed the thunders and the lightnings. And the rabbis are like, why in the world does it say thunders and lightnings? Like why does it say it in the plural like this? Because the rabbis could not leave anything alone, especially anything that seemed odd or strange or unusual in the Torah. And with the belief that every word, right, has the ability to teach us deep lessons, they say, come and see, right? How the divine voice, when it came out of Mount Sinai, when revelation occurred, it went to each and every person according to their ability, right? It says from those who are old, wise, experienced in the ways of the world, all the way down to the infant who still had not yet been weaned. And so the idea was that actually everybody who stood at Sinai in that moment, and we're told that every single Jewish soul that was then and ever would be, including those who choose to be part of the Jewish people, was present in that moment. It means that every single Jewish soul in that moment experienced revelation according to their life experience, according to their physical ability, according to their heartbreak or their joy in that moment, according to what they were feeling, whether they were upset or whether they were scared or whether they're in awe. That they experienced their particular, even their height made a difference, right? Even how distant they were or what side of the mountain they happened to stand on. And what this teaches us is that every single person experienced revelation in a unique way, which means that, humbly speaking, none of us have the whole picture, right? None of us have the whole picture. We actually need each other to learn. It's why we learn traditionally in chavruta and learning pairs in the Jewish community, because learning alone, right, you're only getting a small, narrow view of what is in front of you, but actually learning together, we get to actually see not just that text, but also that other experience of revelation and expand our own view. And so that means that every single one of you in this room has your own experience of Torah, right? The learning and the wisdom that you have to share, your own experience of this tradition, whether you're born into it, coming into it, or you're adjacent to it because you love somebody who's immersed in it. And it means that, right, if we're going to learn Torah, we best learn from each other. So tonight we have 6 amazing Mishkanites who are sharing a bit of their Torah with all of you as a way of priming ourselves to do deep learning, not just on this holiday, but also in the weeks, months, and years ahead, and to open ourselves, right, like that wilderness, right, to allow ourselves to be open to different experiences, different words of Torah that we might receive. So the topic that we're going to be hearing tonight, we primed you a little bit for it with the prompt that you wrote down on those index cards. Thank you for those who did that. If you still want to write down your answer to what is bringing you Jewish joy right now, we have some index cards and gel pens over there for you to use. But the idea of talking about joy in this moment, it might seem very shocking. We're at a moment where there is so much brokenness around us and the world feels so impossible. But I think in the theme of what our people have done for thousands of years, and I'll also speak, it's Pride Month, so I have to speak from the place as a queer person this month, what our communities have done to survive is actually lean into joy, right? Lean into laughter and comedy, sometimes dark humor, sometimes light humor, right? Lean into what we're feeling grateful for, the small blessings, the big blessings, whatever it might be in our life. Not to pretend that the bad stuff doesn't exist, but actually to help us reorient toward, like, if we're fighting so hard, like, what are we fighting for? Like, what are we fighting for? And so these moments of joy remind us, reorient us toward not only what is most important to each of us, but also what's most important, what grounds us in our tradition. I think it's important that we return to Sinai more than just once a year, right? But to go back to those moments of awe, those moments of gratitude, those moments of opening, to remind us that when we start to feel a little narrow, a little compressed, a little weighed down by the world, that there is more than just that. There is space alongside that as well, if we carve it out together here. So we have some instructions, right? Okay.
When we call somebody's name, what are you going to do? If that's what you do, it'll be so sad. All right, guys. All right. John Doe. And they're going to come on up.
Okay, right, yep.
Like, blah, 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 knowledge bombs. And then they're going to be done.
And we're going to say, thank you so much, John Doe, amazing Mishkanite.
And then we're going to... All right.
Amazing.
Great. Shall we? And
Yeah.
I should say, for anybody who's using this microphone, make it comfortable for you. Like, move it, pick it up. Don't bend yourself to the mic can bend for you.
Exactly. So our first speaker tonight is going to be John Quinn. If you want to start making your way up to the front. We asked everybody for a short bio, but also stalked them on the internet. So basically what's going to happen is an amalgamation of both, which is that John right here works in philanthropy on environmental conservation, LGBTQ advocacy, racial, social, and economic justice, and civic engagement. He's got degrees from the University of Chicago and Syracuse University. We like to say those things just in case there's connections in the room, right? You can chat later, ask me about my alma mater kind of thing. Lives in Lakeview, is the parent/food delivery vehicle for 2 dogs. He loves to read and travel. He's been a builder since 2022. That's what you wrote down. And it is important. And we asked all of our speakers, what is your favorite dairy-based treat in the spirit of Shavuot? And I believe you said ice cream. Oh, yeah. Ice cream.
In fact, I love ice cream so much that when I was in high school, my aunt and my uncle bought me stock in Dairy Queen. It's actually not in my draft, but it feels important for the holiday. And then Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, bought Dairy Queen, and I thought, man, I am rich. It was 1999. Tech stocks were going like crazy. Bill Clinton was president. And I got a check for $45 from Berkshire Hathaway. So you got 0.01 shares of whatever. So I love this holiday. I love cheese, I love reading, and I love learning. And I am super excited to talk to you about how the 2022 summer blockbuster, Top Gun, Maverick, that's an important distinction, brings me Jewish joy. But of course, I think it's important to acknowledge that, as Rabbi Stephen said, it's a little bit hard to feel joy right now, right? There's a lot of stuff outside in the world that wants us to not feel joy, right? Jewish or otherwise, regular joy, Jewish joy, whatever kind of joy you want. It feels a little bit hard to experience that right now. And, from climate change to the wars in Ukraine and Sudan to all of the other conflicts that are hurting people around the globe, the very scary political moment that we're living through in this country, and that's before we even get to what's happening in Israel and Gaza, which feels like it rips my heart open every single day, and this frog in a slowly boiling pot feeling of rising anti-Semitism here at home. And I share these events with all of you, but what I don't share are the private things that are happening to me and to you, the people we've lost, the people who are struggling, the jobs we didn't get, the jobs we did get, but that maybe didn't turn out so great. And so I think it's important before we talk about joy to just acknowledge, as Rabbi Stephen said, it's hard to feel that. And yet, it is hard, even though it is hard to think about joy, it creeps in and we can't help it, right? But before I get too far, I'm actually getting ahead of myself because when I get an assignment from my rabbis, I try to be a very good student. So I went to sources to try to find out what brings Jewish joy. And it may not surprise you, there is no consensus. In fact, there are lots of different reasons that you might experience joy. There are also lots of rules related to joy, right? So it shows up all over the tradition. There's actually in Devarim, there's a striking moment when Moses charges. He's like, here's a bunch of stuff that you have to do and not do. And all these bad things are going to happen to you. And one of the things that you are not supposed to do is to not have joy, right? You are supposed to serve your God in joy and gladness over the abundance of everything. And this is Moses saying, right around the time that all of this stuff is happening, or close enough, right? It was 40 years, it was give or take, right? A few months. Despite all the challenges that the Jewish people have faced, they have to find their way to joy to be close to God, right? And interestingly, as I mentioned, this is in the context, this is a lot of instructions, right? You have to take actions to get joy. And that felt to me like rules, maybe not so great. Do rules really correspond with joy? Maybe, maybe not. Rev Nachman of Breslov, one of the founders of Hasidism, believed that joy was a mitzvah and that we had to work for it, to strive for it. He was a man, if you know anything about him, he knew great sadness, right? And he said we had to look that in the face, turn the other direction, and go back towards joy because God wants us to, because the world is still, despite it all, full of things that we can experience joy from. So to me, and here's where I bring it back in that way that they teach us, to the holiday that we're experiencing. Jewish joy is a tiny moment of revelation that bursts into your everyday, and mine, and ours. In her first post-sabbatical sermon, Rabbi Lizzie said the following. See, I went to the sources, people. This is what she said. And in one of my favorite bits of Midrash, we are told that all 2 million-ish of these people had their own vantage point and way that they internalized the message. This person was shorter, this one taller, this one in a wheelchair. Children might have heard it in the voice of their parents, adults in the voice of their lover, elders in the voice of their deceased partners. Blind or deaf, it didn't matter. They experienced the revelation according to their own life experience and ability. God, we are assuming, knew this variation was taking place. She's the creator of the universe, after all. If she'd wanted everyone to experience the same thing, then they would have. But apparently, even 4,000 years ago in Torah, or 2,000 years ago in Midrash, our ancestors understood that different people respond differently to what's right in front of them, and nonetheless must build community together in the presence of those differences. That last line in particular is very resonant to the moment that we live in, but it's what came before that struck me, that the moment of revelation happened to everyone differently, like we were just talking about. People heard it differently, they saw it differently. Maybe for some it was a dance move, maybe for others it was the solar eclipse that happened a few months ago, or maybe it was the high note at a concert. Our tradition tells us we were all present at Sinai, and this I take to mean both that revelation was a moment that existed at a specific moment in time, but that it also transcends time. It can happen to any of us at any moment in a way that elevates our attention and our focus. It pulls us out of the moment and takes us somewhere transcendent, where we can connect to the divine and to each other. It stops us in our tracks and makes us look up, and it makes us look out. You know kind of how a yoga instructor tells you to concentrate on your breathing? That's my least favorite part of doing yoga as an ex-yoga person. They're like, focus on your breathing. And I'm like, it hurts, what I'm gonna have for dinner, did the dog pee on the floor? But if you really do it, and if you really, really do it, you are actually fully present in that moment because you're just focused on the one thing, right? How precious it is to feel that sense of focus and direction. That is the moment of joy. That is the moment of revelation. When you're doing that breathing, you're letting yourself be open to one of those moments. And often they come unbidden. They just show up, right? So that is how, for me, this took the form of Top Gun Maverick. Who's seen the movie? Okay, so about half the people in the room. Is it weird? It may be weird to you. It is not weird to me, but is it weird that a movie that is all about big booms and boys flirting while pretending not to and fighting a war was a moment of revelation? Perhaps. But God and the universe work in ways that we cannot always understand. So there's a moment early on in the movie where you're watching some planes take off, right? This is like, I was a military kid. I grew up in Florida. There were lots of planes. It was like very cool space, all that kind of stuff. This is like real deep me stuff. And it showed up in 2022 again. So the planes are taking off. The camera is placed in such a way that it's on the cockpit of the plane but facing backwards, right? So you're looking at the dude who's piloting the plane, right? Like imagine Glenn Powell, right? Like very handsome Glenn Powell, and you're like, oh, he's so handsome. And and then the plane takes off, right? So you're looking at Glenn Powell in the plane, and you're going, oh, he's so handsome. And then suddenly the plane is going like this, and you're like, everything is like swooping up behind you. It's like you're whooshing up into the air. And I'm sitting there in this giant IMAX theater full of people, July 4th weekend, booms, boys flirting, Glenn Powell. And I'm like, and I just said out loud, whoa, cool. And a couple of people around me looked at me like, maybe this is a 12-year-old who thought that was really neat. And no, it was just me. For just that moment, I was not thinking about what I was gonna have for dinner after the movie or what my work calendar looked like. I was just there. I was on that plane and in that theater with everyone watching the experience in that moment. And what I like about these moments of joy and revelation is that they can be as simple as a really cool camera angle in a movie, or seeing a baby sparrow chirp after its mother on the ground while you're out walking the dogs around your block, but they can also be deeply profound. Last October, I was in London for a few days, and I went to see a bunch of art, and on my last night in town, I went to the Royal Academy to see the retrospective of the work of Marina Abramovich, the performance artist. It had works from throughout her career. It was really cool, but the whole time my brain was buzzing, right? I was thinking, what time do I need to leave for the airport tomorrow? Where is a really good hotel bar nearby where I can get a particularly ruthless British martini? What time should I get to Dishoom so that I don't have to wait in line for like 3 hours for dinner? And every single room that I go into, those 3 questions are floating in my head. The last room in the exhibit was, who remembers the Sex and the City episode where Carrie meets Mikhail Baryshnikov? Okay. For those of you who are online, like 4 people raised their hand. Fewer people than saw Top Gun remember that very seminal moment from 2002, at least for me. This is how I learned who Marina Abramovich was, because there's a gallery show where there's an artist who's living inside the gallery, sleeping and eating and peeing and showering and everything like that. They had a performer in the gallery who was doing this show, right? She was living in this, or she, he, they, whoever. They had a rotating group of performers, 12 days at a time. You just drink water, you sleep, you can't like leave, you just stay up there. And I'm thinking, Dishoom, martini, airplane, Dishoom, martini, airport, Dishoom, martini, airport. And I'm like, okay, 20 minutes, I'm gonna focus on this thing. And I just keep thinking, Dishoom, martini, airport. And then the room gets quiet because Marina Abramovich walked in. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And she stood right in front of me and sat down right in front of me. So for an hour and a half, I sat there and I watched Marina Abramovich watch the performer. I watched the performer watch Marina Abramovich. I watched the people around me watch Marina Abramovich watch the performer watch Marina Abramovich. I cried when she cried. We all cried together. And I don't know that I've ever focused that intently or been that present for a work of art. And I stayed until a security guard got up and told us we had to leave because the museum was closing. And still people didn't leave. And Marina Abramovich got up and said, really seriously, the museum is closing, you have to leave. So I'm gonna leave you with one last one because it's my favorite. And that's the day that I finished my conversion in August of 2022. I get a little emotional. Some of us had our mikveh in Lake Michigan. Who was there? yeah. And that day, the waves were pretty rough. In fact, the people who had gone before me had lost things to the lake's intensity, many things. Personal effects, personal clothing, important signals and cards that we needed to give to each other. So out I go, completely naked. My parents are there to witness. Rabbi Stephen and Rabbi Dina are there to oversee. And I grew up in Florida, and I grew up near the ocean, and from the time that I was a baby, I was in the water, right? So I'm a pretty confident swimmer, and it was pretty rough going even for me, right? I was, like, the waves were pulling me down, the current was pulling me out, but there I was, focused on the water, and being in it, and on hearing the rabbis yell out the Shehekianu, and I was yelling it back to them because it was the first time I was in the water as a Jew, and we could hear each other over the whir of the waves and the bright sun, And I wasn't thinking about what had come before or what would come after. I was just there, in that water that's been there for thousands of years and will be here hopefully for thousands of years after I'm gone and you're gone and everybody who we know is gone. Letting it toss me about. Well, I said a little thanks to God and touched Sinai and Shehekianu, the millions of other Jews, all that had come before and all that would come after me, because they were in the water too. Thank you. May-
Thank you, John. That's John Quinn, everybody. Yasher Koach. Alexa says, or is it? Alita says, I'm finding Jewish joy right now by being accepted into this community and learning about the Jewish faith. Thanks for having me. Go ahead.
Susan says, I'm finding Jewish joy right now by building community here in our newish home.
Cindy says, I'm finding Jewish joy right now in the Mishkan community. So grateful for this welcoming space. Wow, we did not pay anybody to write this stuff.
Lexi says, I've been enjoying this journey from collective liberation to revelation through the Omer with a beautiful river of community.
All right, Ricky, get ready to walk up here. I want to welcome Ricky Hallie Podell. Come on up. Ricky loves to travel and is especially fond of the mountains, where he loves to hike and telemark ski. He lives in Oak Park, where he works as a massage therapist and teaches K-8 physical wellness. On Wednesday, he will celebrate 30 years of marriage to his best friend, Sarah. All right. Come on up, Ricky. And he is a stalwart morning Minionite every single day.
So after I finished this, I went to print it, and my printer had no ink. So I discovered actually it's even easier to read on a phone. So I'm going to use the phone. So 30 years younger doing it. Thanks. Yeah. So I've always been a seeker. I spent many years exploring and reading various traditions such as Taoism, Buddhism, Chinese medicine, Tai Chi, yoga. But about 9.5 years ago, I had kind of a rough time and went through a rough patch in life. And a friend of mine, a mentor, told me or suggested that I should start to pray. And the first thing I thought was, I don't know how to pray. And then I went back and thought about, well, what resonated for me when I was, or what worked in the past. And so I thought about being at Jewish camp as a kid, as a young adult, working there. And what struck me was the music and the singing. We had a Beit Tefillah that was where we had prayers and services out in nature. And we would sit in the trees amongst the birds singing and the mosquitoes on these benches made of logs. And it just resonated so much with me that I found that I needed to pick up my guitar and go back each morning and start singing those Jewish songs that really brought me to that Judaism as a child. So I started a regular practice of davening each morning. And one of the best things about COVID was that Mishkan started a morning minyan, which I regularly attend. And it's nice to see so many of those faces and give hugs to people who I actually only see in a little box every day. So several years ago, I was at a retreat, and surprisingly, there was a nun there who said something that truly resonated with me, and it stuck with me. And what she said was that in the word spiritual is the word ritual. The rituals of the Jewish calendar provide a structure that fills my life with balance and joy. From the daily ritual of morning minyan to celebrating Shabbat most weeks with dear friends, shout out to Tamar and Zivi back there, and marking the holidays. Judaism is filled with so many holidays and customs, so many I never knew about. Growing up in a small Jewish community in Rockford, Illinois, Temple Bethel. One of my favorites is this period we are concluding tonight, the counting of the Omer, the 49 days of walking the path of revelation. This period starts on the second night of Passover until Shavuot, as our people left Egypt and then stood at Sinai to receive the Torah. I love the daily ritual of counting the Omer, which incorporates the spiritual and mystical aspects of the Sephirot, the characteristics of godliness, the Kabbalistic tree of life. Each week focuses in on one of the Sephirot: Chesed, loving kindness; Gevura, restrictions and boundaries; Tiferet, balance; Netzach, endurance; Hod, beauty and humility and surrender; Yesod, the foundation, our sexual energies and our relationships with others; and Malchut, the kingship and sovereignty. Each day we meditate on the interaction of one Sephirot manifesting in the other. This past week, Malchut, I had the privilege of fully experiencing the majesty of this world we live in. Malchut represented by the Shekhinah, the feminine aspect of God, the indwelling presence of the divine as it resonates here on earth. My wife and son and I spent the week hiking through the high desert of the Wasatch Mountains in Salt Lake City. Every day, step by step in the wilderness, listening to the sounds of nature, seeing the red cliffs, feeling the wind and the mist of waterfalls, I reflected on the oneness of it all. I felt a kinship with the Israelites on their journey to Sinai, and that moment of revelation when all the Israelites heard the one sound at Mount Sinai. I contemplated, what did the Israelites all hear at once? I find it hard to conceptualize this moment of revelation where all those standing at Sinai heard the same thing. Some texts talk about the blast of the shofar in the mountain in smoke and flames. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimanov speaks of a Hasidic idea, it being simply a guttural sound of the letter Aleph. As I reflect on this here, as we approach the moment of revelation, Shavuot, the giving of the Torah, I think of the sound we have all been experiencing lately, the sound of nature, the sound of the cicadas, the sound that at times can be overwhelming, just as the Israelites were overwhelmed by the sound of hearing the voice of God. I allow this sound to wash over me and feel the oneness of nature. And so with each day that I go outside and hear the cicadas or hike in the mountains, I'm reminded, Shaviti Havaya Lenegdi Tamid. I place the one before me always. This higher power I call God, and it humbles me and grounds me and makes me glad I'm a Jew and gives me joy. Thank you.
This is anonymous. I am finding Jewish joy from the rescue of 4 of the hostages.
Shabbat onions? Dinners! Shabbat dinners. Also anonymous.
The continued respite of Shabbat dinners with my people.
I am finding Jewish joy in community, Miriam. Yeah. All right.
So our next speaker is going to be, speaker's not the right word, Torah sharer, is going to be Jenny Schaefer. Here, Jenny, yeah. Jenny is a mom of 3 kids and lives nearby in the North Center neighborhood. Last year, she was elected to be a member of the 19th Police District Council. And our district council aims to improve relationships between community and police by making sure police are accountable to the people that they serve. I will say that Jenny is one of the leaders of our local action team, which was part of the group of folks who advocated for that legislation. So it's amazing to see you also on the other side making it happen. They work to advocate for public safety solutions that make sense and benefit everyone in the system. And her favorite dairy food is cheese pizza.
Hey, I'm used to talking in front of people, but not about Jewish joy, so bear with me. This is a new opportunity for me. I was really grateful for this opportunity to pause and spend some time reflecting on what brought me Jewish joy. It was a particularly valuable experience because my relationship to this question has really evolved in significant ways over the years. Growing up, my connection to Judaism was primarily cultural. I participated in Jewish traditions and enjoyed them for the way they connected me with my family and our values. However, I found the religious aspects, particularly the concept of God, unrelatable, stale, and frankly, quite boring. The prescribed rules felt confining, and I struggled to find personal meaning in them. I have memories of going to high holiday services and counting the ceiling tiles, braiding the seat on my dad's tallis, and playing this alphabet game in the Siddur where we would scan through, try and find A and then B and then C and beat my brother, and he would try and beat me. And I was just waiting for the magical moment when my parents said, okay, you can go outside and play with your friends. In the past decades, however, I've been building a new understanding of what Judaism and God has brought a tremendous amount of joy and meaning into my life. For me, the joy and importance of Judaism lies in the exploration and the connection with our deeper selves, which is intrinsically linked to our exploration and connection with a higher power. The path to building this relationship is where the joy resides. I now see Jewish laws not as a set of rigid rules, but as a series of guideposts, ideas and suggestions born from individuals' interpretations of how to connect with the divine. These traditions and rules are gifts to try on, modify, change, and discover the ways to connect with God that are meaningful to me. Finding my own ways to connect with the godliness in myself and others have brought meaningful peace and joy into my life. It's the joy of discovery. It is fun and fulfilling. I especially find joy in learning from contemporary activists and leaders like Audre Lorde, James Baldwin, Sonia Renee Taylor, and others who have translated ancient wisdom into meaningful modern ideas. One of my most joyful expressions of this philosophy in my life is our family's Shabbat tradition. There are so many important lessons that Shabbat can teach us when we do it with intention. We start the ceremony by turning the lights off and having one of our kids lead us in a deep, intentional breathing exercise. They have all different types of breaths in their tool belt that they've learned at school. They have the dragon breath. They have my favorite, which is a hot chocolate breath, where you breathe, you smell your hot chocolate, and then you breathe on it, which is my favorite. Oftentimes, my kids just make up some random crazy breath, and that's the breath that we all do together. But this is a really nice practice that calms us, and it centers us, and it creates this great space to have a meaningful moment together. Next, we light the candles, and we say the blessing. After lighting the candles, we take several moments to just watch the flames dance on the wick. It's beautiful and peaceful, and it's one of the only moments that everyone in my house is quiet. But then we break the silence by sharing something in a circle that brought light to our life, whether it was a kind gesture from a friend, or my son likes to talk about great things he does in his sporting games, or a fun school field trip they got to go on, a way to just share what was really meaningful for us that week. Next, we say the blessing over the wine, and we pass the Kiddush cup around. As each person takes a sip of that sweet wine, we discuss the importance of being sweet to others, caring for them, and finding opportunities to be loving throughout the week. After each person takes a sip of their wine, they also share something that they did for others, and we all take a moment to be grateful for the loving, kind energy that we're all putting out in the world. Finally, we say the blessing over the challah, and we pass the challah, starting from the youngest and moving through the oldest. The challah is everyone's favorite, and it's something that we use to fill our tummies, and we also then share what we hope to fill our week with. What are the things that we want to bring into the week? And we really use it as a way to set an intention for the following week. This Shabbat tradition encapsulates the essence of my Jewish joy. It is a practice that combines mindfulness, gratitude, and intentionality, creating a space for connection with our deeper selves and with each other. It embodies the expansive, evolving, and deeply personal nature of Judaism that brings so much meaning and joy into my life. Thank you for letting me share my journey and the joy that I have found in living authentically within my Jewish values. May we all find our own paths of joy and connection, enriching our lives and our community. Thank you.
And if people want to talk about police accountability, talk to Jenny. Anonymous. I am brought to Jewish joy right now by Shavuot, reuniting with God and my soul.
Pam said, I'm experiencing Jewish joy right now by partaking in community moments and remembering how resilient and community-focused we are.
Yonatan said, I am finding Jewish joy right now by filling my home with Jewish art. All right.
And this individual who's anonymous, but is either Ricky or somebody who thinks a lot like Ricky, is hearing the voice of God singing through the cicadas.
All right. We are going to be welcoming to the Bima, this corner of our office, Patricia Tyson. Patricia Tyson is a Chicago native, a registered nurse with a strong background in hospice and palliative care, but her life's passion is music. Patricia is a composer, choral director, and classically trained vocalist and concert pianist. She's composed over 500 hymns, choral works, and songs of inspiration, all intended to inspire the singers and the listeners, affect positive change, and consider a more excellent way of living, doing, and being. But I think you sent me like a little addition to that, didn't you? Did you start a Jewish music company called Shalom Music? So we are very thrilled to hear your music and to hear from you.
That's good. That's real good.
All
Hi.
right.
So, here I am talking about Jewish joy. And what brings me joy is most of all music. And I find it kind of ironic. I have a speech impediment called spasmodic dysphonia. Anybody ever heard of that? Katharine Hepburn had it. RFK has it. So I thought I was getting the old lady voice, and I was like, God, I sound like my mother. What is this? And she was 95 when she died. And I had an aunt that was that auntie, and she called me and she said, you sound like you had a stroke. And I said, no. But the nurse in me said, look into it. So I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor and found out it was a thing. It was called spasmodic dysphonia. And I said, well, God, you've got a sense of humor. because, you know, I'm a classical singer. I took voice lessons and all that stuff. And it's stress related. It's stress. So what I have to do is calm down, take a deep breath, and singing actually helps the spasms. So it's not so bad. So I need to sing more. So Rabbi Lizzie and Rabbi Stephen sent me an email, and I'm not real good at checking them, but I saw this, and I was like, oh, they asked me to be a part of this. And I was like, yeah. And I think it said something about bringing a song. And I was like, I can do that, because I have so much to share, and most of it is hidden. And I have a lot of Hebrew prayers, and the prayers, when I was first doing self-study years ago, the prayers just brought me peace. And the Shema brought me peace. And I would write, if it touched my heart, I'd put it to music. And so I put the Shema to music, and I didn't know if that was sacrilegious to do that. I was like, these are ancient songs. I shouldn't be messing with them, but I did. So this song has only been done a couple of times, and I'm glad that you all have given me the platform to do this, and we're such a cool group. So if you want to jump in and sing, because there's a part where everybody can join in, and I hope you do. So I'm going to do my best and get centered. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malkuto Leolam Vayed Leolam Vayed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord Echad, the Lord is one. Blessed be his glorious name. Forever shall his kingdom reign. Hear, O Israel, the Lord Echad, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind and soul. Let these words be on your heart, and teach your children what I say. When you sleep, when you rise, when you sit, when you lie, when you're walking by the way, kingdom reign. Hear Israel, hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, Adonai Echad. Hear Israel, hear Israel, oh, hear Israel, Adonai Echad. Oh, hear Israel, hear Israel, hear Israel, Adonai Echad. Oh, hear Israel, oh, hear Israel, oh, hear Israel, Adonai Echad. Oh, hear Israel, oh, hear, oh, hear Adonai. One more time. Hear Israel, hear Israel, hear Adonai is Echad. Adonai is Echad. Adonai is Echad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're down to our last two. All right. Who's that? Madison says, I'm finding Jewish joy in the community. I'm building here.
Oh, this is Jewish music sung in community.
Alyssa says, I'm finding Jewish joy in my daughter's smiling pictures from camp.
Aww. And Josh says that he's finding Jewish joy meeting new and familiar faces at this holiday service.
This holiday. Yay.
This very one.
All right. It's all you.
So next up, I'd like to invite up Chana Zelig. Now, Chana recently celebrated becoming a bat mitzvah. 47 years late, you do the math, but she made it. She is those were her words. I said, those are your words. It looks like I was making fun of you, but it was not. It was not, because I love you a lot. And she is a Judaic artist and the administrator of the community mikveh. And I have to tell you this, as somebody who's been doing conversions in this community for many years now, she has absolutely revolutionized the mikveh experience for dozens of individuals in our community. It is, like, you walk in there is music playing and candles lit and beautiful art that she created. And I think actually the biggest treat is that when people go through the mikveh process, the first thing they get is the warmest, best, like, Jewish mother hug from a actual Jewish mother. And her favorite dairy treat is ice cream.
Okay, I'm not doing what I prepared because I tend to be kind of a little egg-headed, and Torah gives me a lot of joy, and so I was sitting up here going to talk about the second commandment, but I'm not going to do that. Are you sure? I should? If you practice, if you prepared something. Yeah. But it's very serious, but I'll do it anyway because. So a lot of it actually dovetails into what John talked about, the fact of finding joy and finding God in so many different things. And also, I mean, everything kind of, there's a thing, okay, I am going off the cuff here. There's something in the ethics of our fathers in Pirkei Avot. There's something that says, who is wise, who learns from all the other people. And I think who is joyful is the person who learns from all the other people. So what I did tonight is I just was gathering all of these ideas and thoughts that people have, and it just fills me with joy. So thank you for that. What I love about Judaism is that it's an aesthetic religion. I'm an artist, and it means to experience beauty, and through experiencing beauty, you experience transcendence. And that sounds weird considering that there's a second commandment, because it says graven images you're not allowed to do graven images, but the way that I look at the commandment against idolatry informs how I live my life. So this all started, it might have been more than 30 years ago, but it was about 30 years ago. Edith Altman, she died a couple of years ago, she was an artist, a Holocaust survivor, and a lot of her work was about her experience. And she did this in the State of Illinois building, which is, I guess, now called the Thompson Center, the big round one with the Dubuffet statue in the middle, outside. There was this gallery there, and it was this really long space. Like, you just walked in, it was like a bowling alley. And at the very end, this was called Reclaiming the Symbol. At the very end was this gigantic swastika. It was weird, but she wanted to reclaim it as its original use in the spiritual traditions. And personally, I didn't think it worked because a symbol, sometimes you can't reclaim it. There are some things that just get stuck. But there was one thing that she had that changed everything about the way that I think about art and about behavior and about beauty, and certainly about idolatry. There was a thing all the way at the end, like way at the end, and there was this really beautiful little German melody, and it was lovely, and it was coming out of this tiny little violin, and it was pretty. So you caught walking over there, and then you realize very faintly, imagine like a blue wall, and then a slightly lighter blue writing, so you have to kind of look at it, and the writing said they loved music more than people. And so that got me thinking about what idolatry is. An artifact, like music, is a metaphor or a vessel for something that can't be put into words. Idolatry is thinking the creation is an end in itself. So, for example, like the image of Christ is supposed to, nailed to the cross, is supposed to make someone look at it and go, you think about compassion. But the Jewish tradition was very skeptical of visual images because it's so easy to say, well, that's what it is. That's what God is. I can look right at it. So Judaism is a performance art. That's how I think of Judaism, as a performance art, and that's what gives me a lot of joy. The commandment against making a pesel, which is the word for idol or statue, is the same word that God uses when he wants Moses to do the next set of tablets. He goes, pesolacha. So it's just like, if it's that bad to do a pesel, then why is he using the word himself? And it's because I think that art in the service of something bigger than yourself, that takes you out of yourself, that's what holiness is. So if there's a vehicle, and that's also, I think, what happens when Moses goes up the mountain. He says, God, can I look at your face? And God says, you can't look at my face, you can only look at my back. And I was just thinking, God didn't turn his back to Moses. He said, I'm always getting away from you. And that's the point, you're always pursuing me. So it's like in the Symposium by Plato, there's this image of a bird and an aviary, and it's always getting away from you. That's kind of the point. So now here's the thing. You can do a performance art, but that ends up, I grew up really Orthodox, as many of you know, and I found that you can do a performance art like a mitzvah, but that itself becomes kind of an idol because you get so hung up on the mitzvah part. So the Kutzker Rebbe was this giant in the Hasidic world, and he said, Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, and he said something like, the Torah itself can also become an idol. So I'm going to give you two examples of that. One in the Talmud and the other in Shakespeare. So Yoma, in Tractate Yoma, there's a story of two priests are walking down the street, and one stabs the other. And I know, right? It's in Yoma 23. He stabs, and the father of this is really dark. Everybody else is doing all these like happy things, and I'm listening to this and going, I can't believe I'm following something you're just saying. Everyone's clapping, and now here I am. Okay, talking about stabbing. But I'm still going to do it. Okay, so the father, this is so absurd. So the father of the guy who's stabbed, the guy's not dead yet. He's still like convulsing. And the guy takes the knife. The father, I swear to you, this is in the Talmud. He takes the knife and he goes, hey, this knife is still usable because it's not impure from touching a dead body. It's like a joke. So that's what I was thinking. And then the whole Israel has to do this ritual of the Eglah Arufah, which is like how the Jews in those days used to absolve themselves of some kind of guilt. They had to the whole community. And the whole community is guilty of this because they are complicit in a society where such things happen. And it reminded me a lot of when I had heard that story, and then when I saw the thing with the violin, I thought this is the same thing, that he was so hung up on the knife that he didn't even like pay attention to the bloodshed. So, and then later, the Kutzker Rebbe had a student called the Ishbitzer Rebbe, and they had a parting of the ways because the Ishbitzer Rebbe wrote, his name was Rabbi Mordechai Leiner, he wrote this book about free will that was very radical. But one of the things he wrote is that the soul is defiled through despair and by falling for a fiction within the truth. Like, what does that mean? So I'm thinking the truth is ineffable. It's like love. You can't really describe it in words, but you can only, there are fictions that represent that. So I'll put it this way. Hamlet is not really the Prince of Denmark, okay, who wants to kill his father, kill his uncle for killing his father. But it's true because it's the truth of the story, right? It's truthful to the story. It's kind of like people who get hung up on whether or not Abraham really existed. It doesn't matter. It's the story. We have that story. That's the truth. That's our truth. The truth of us is that we have this story. So, so if you wanted to reject idolatry, I mean, I think that Shakespeare was like the greatest writer who ever penned anything in the English language. So, and a lot of people think that. So, I mean, you know, I'm not the only one. So, but if you want to reject idolatry or bardolatry, it means to experience the beauty, it means to experience the beauty of language, not as something that's like ossified, but as something that actually, it's just a vessel for something that actually resists language, that is to say God. And the only time visual art actually moved me, and this is where I really resonated with what John said, art moved me to tears only twice. And, you know, I mean, other than my own anxiety tears about, like, making things, I was in the Art Institute of Chicago, and it was not that long after I moved to Chicago. I've lived here for 40 years, so this was a long time ago. And I went into one of the galleries, and right at the end, I was stunned to find The Penitent Saint Peter by Giuseppe di Ribera. And it had the kind of Caravaggio sort of lighting, and there's this guy who has his hand up. He's clearly a Jewish model. You can tell, and his eyes are so wet, and he's got his hands up, and he's basically saying, God, I don't even know if I believe in you, but can you give me a break? Can you do something for me here? I don't even know if you're there. It was like, and I'm even crying just thinking about it now. It was so stunning, and it was the only time that visual art didn't go through my head first. It went straight to my, you know, like I started getting that feeling behind my nose when you know you're going to start to cry. And that's what that did. And the other time that happened was in a concert. I was with my daughter, Ayelet, and we went to, and this is also kind of a sad piece of music, Goretzky's Third Symphony, the third movement. There is a moment where the soprano hits this note. The soprano hits this note, and I turned to her and I said, oh my God, that's the truth. And I didn't even, that's the truth. And I didn't even like, I didn't even think, oh, she really hit this note. That's really something. And so that's my Jewish joy, is that this is a performance art that we have, that we're all in this script together, that we're going through life together, and we're seeking, this is improv. We're seeking in our script, we're improvising this beautiful, beautiful thing. So I wanted to thank everybody who was here before for your Torah, because it makes me a much bigger person, and I'm really grateful for that. And hi, everybody at home.
Down the home stretch.
Yeah.
Audrey says, I am finding Jewish joy right now by immersing myself in learning and community. There's a theme tonight.
Linda says, I'm finding Jewish joy in turning my phone off every Friday night and lighting candles.
Yes, revolutionary. Shira says, I am finding Jewish joy in the party-sized bag of kosher wings at TJ's.
Chloe says, I'm finding Jewish joy in the friends I've made in the blueprint class.
We're just gonna finish these because this is our last one. I'm finding Jewish joy in imagining what will happen once the guitar and keys are played, and they have been played. I hope you found Jewish joy in that.
And Carter says, I'm finding Jewish joy right now through expanding my Jewish knowledge, pushing my comfort zone, and being in religious spaces and supporting this community with love. Aww.
Lovely. All right, our last speaker tonight is Joe Pryor. Come on up. Joe is a Chicago local, joined the Army after law school in 2009, toured Afghanistan from 2011 to 2012. After serving, he transitioned from military intelligence to business intelligence, using the GI Bill to pursue an MS in business analytics from Xavier University. Now he lives and works in the Windy City with Leah Ari and 2 cats and a dog. And when he's not working, he is cycling, playing games, or painting miniatures. His favorite dairy foods are classics for a reason: sharp white cheddar for savory, or vanilla bean ice cream for sweet. Joe.
Thank you. Sure. Mic check, we good? All right. Hello, folks. I'm Joe Pryor. I'm in the Blueprint program with Rabbi Stephen, in the process of my conversion. He's doing a great job. Yeah. I don't want to make my drash about comparing my new chosen tradition against my old one. This isn't about going, look how much better my new faith is. But I do want to take a moment to establish some context. The tradition I was raised in held an unfavorable opinion on my need as a precocious young man to critically engage with the doctrines and beliefs of that tradition. I was shepherded through the various steps of that program, from baptism to confirmation, without ever having the opportunity to say whether I did or did not want to participate in that benchmark. Whenever I stopped to ask, but why though, about a belief or tradition, I was frequently told some variation of because we said so and to drop it. In my life, I have been a lawyer, a bartender, a military intelligence analyst, and now I'm in the 13th year of my career as a business intelligence analyst. I've always been curious. I've always had a strong desire to understand how everything works, to break it apart, and why. People and systems are at the very core of what ignites my passion. The resistance I met in my religious upbringing to that curiosity, which underpins the way I engage with the world, led me to withdraw from that tradition. In time, I came to align with Marx. Religion was the opium of the masses, and reject the very idea of organized religion entirely. It's shocking then that I should fall for a woman who is not only Jewish, but very, very Jewish. As you may imagine, I had a lot to learn. And a great deal of all of this looks similar enough at first blush to the tradition I was raised in, such that I carried with me in the beginning of my Jewish journey a great deal of skepticism. Imagine my surprise when That skepticism was not looked upon unfavorably. Nay, I was encouraged to doubt. I was encouraged by my loving partner and the wonderful communities from Mishkan to 18 Doors to the others I worked with to critically engage with Judaism or any concept therein. I would later learn that this God wrestling was in fact such an ancient tradition and at the very core of what it is to be Jewish, so much so that we named ourselves after it. At every step in my Jewish journey, I have been encouraged to question, to learn, and to do what young Joe never could, to critically engage with the material, keep what speaks to me and leave what doesn't. But also to come back from time to time, because the things that aren't for me at one stage of my Jewish journey might hit differently later on. An excellent example of this is Torah study. I consider myself a pretty firm rationalist. In my professional life, I live in a world of spreadsheets and logically derived algorithms. I have tried reading the King James Bible. Fun fact, in my basic training, you could read 2 books for leisure. 1, the Bible, or 2, a manual on military cadences. I bounced off the Bible so hard. I spent 12 weeks engrossed in modern military cadence until I could reclaim my right to an internet connection. You would think then that I wouldn't like Torah study. I sure as hell did. However, in my personal life, I grew up with heavy metal, comic books, and Dungeons and Dragons. I spent most of my formative years enthusiastically debating, some might say arguing, with my friends about topics such as which interpretation of Spider-Man was the most correct. Stan Lee created the character in the 60s. Clearly his Spidey must inform all others. But J. Michael Straczynski's 2000s refresh brought him into the immediate post-9/11 world and into our modern lives. These lively debates, so this guy gets it. These lively debates with my friends would form some of the fondest memories of my young adulthood. My friends and I pored over decades of back issues or older editions, seeking to mine out obscure lore and derive new insights of material long since studied to exhaustion. Yet my unwitting Havruta loved the source material so much, we labored tirelessly all the same. During my first Torah study, in which we discussed a portion of Genesis, I almost immediately saw this same energy, and oh boy, there was commentary. It was like stumbling across an ancient forum debate, recorded for historical posterity, but with fewer ad hominem attacks. None of the sometimes contradictory takes were seen as wrong, they were just different. The Torah may be one of the oldest stories in modern circulation, yet, just like Peter Parker, it is discovered completely anew by each reader. Every interpretation of Spider-Man is unique from the other, and yet, despite that difference, each is universally recognized as Spider-Man. To me, this, or something like it, is what that powerful passage in Deuteronomy lays out. I make this covenant not with you alone, but also with those who are not with us today. We all bring our perspective to the stories and lessons in those hollowed pages, whether they be a comic book page or the Torah. Your version of Jewish expression is just as valid as mine. Our version of Jewish expression is just as valid as anybody else's. That's beautiful and inclusive. The freedom to doubt, the gift of critical engagement, that feeds my Jewish joy. Rather than passively doing as I'm told, we stoke a sense of collective curiosity and an active intellectual ownership that we derive from and with each other all the time. How joyous.
Well, can we please just give it up one last time for John Quinn, Ricky Hallie Podell, Jenny Schaefer, Patricia Tyson, Hannah Zelig, and Joe Pryor. Oh my gosh. We're very moved. I'm so glad you all were here for this. What's going to happen now is if it's possible for people to fold chairs and help hang them up, that will make the cleanup of this room go a lot faster. And then who's walking with us over to Anshe Emet? Yay! Oh my gosh, amazing. So I think we won't take Irving Park. That'll be loud and annoying. We'll go up Ravenswood and then maybe just take Grace all the way over. But we'll just go in a group. And for anybody else who is not walking, but maybe we'll see you there, see you there. And for anybody for whom this was Shavuot for you this year, Chag Sameach. And we'll be on for Minyan at 8 a.m. tomorrow. God help me. So. Thank you all so much for being here. Yasher koach. Yeah.